Is your packaging lying to you? Do you feel deceived? So today on Unpacked, we are going to talk about deceptive, disruptive, differentiated packaging. Okay, here in front of me, I have 4 different packs. And before I show you or tell you what they are, I just want you to call it out. So if I showed you this, you would say, probably whipped cream, Cheese Whiz, something along those lines. Ice cream, beverage, maybe some paint thinner, solvents, things like that. What is interesting is that as a society, we largely begin to adopt and relate certain forms that we see to certain things. And so if we see a profile with this long neck and kind of skinny and it's got a bigger bottom, we are going to go, oh, that's syrup or that's salad dressing, and we start to make associations to products. And so when we see a container like this, a metal canister, and we see a lid on it like this, it's just, we would immediately associate that with a couple of different products. And that's just because that's largely what that industry has become known for, and it's probably a stock format that multiple brands use. So when we see these packages out there, we think we know what they are. However, if I told you that this was sunscreen mousse, you may be surprised. Or if I told you that over here, this was olive oil, okay, interesting, not shocking. What if I told you that this was a surface cleaner? Or that this was tampons? You may be surprised. You may think that's appalling, or you may think that's interesting. And that's kind of the topic of today's video. It's just when brands do something that is disruptive or unexpected, sometimes they can win. Sometimes the brand is really known for that. Sometimes a brand just loves to be, to poke the bear a little bit, to be interesting. And sometimes it can be downright dangerous. So let's just kind of take a quick look at this. So this is a stock steel container. You know, these types of containers are used in a number of different places, but probably most notably in the solvents space. Again, there are some applications for premium foods and things like that, but this is maybe the largest departure. You're probably not going to have solvents in your kitchen, or there's things that it's very different from where it would normally live. And there's also this kind of what's being subbed into what, right? So this one it's not as crazy as some of the others. This guy here, this is a Puracy Everyday Surface Cleaner. By the way, I think this is a digitally printed can, at least it feels like. Just the way that it has this texture on it. It is in what would typically be known as a stock can. It's a 14.4 ounce. But you see what they have to do here. With this, they know that there's this chance of confusion because they put a big sticker across the top that says do not drink. They have a big band around the top that says do not drink, this is surface cleaner. They've got to put all these warnings on there because they know there's a high likelihood for consumer confusion and for somebody to grab this can sitting in the kitchen or somewhere else, pop it open and drink it. If this is just sitting under the sink, set left on the counter or something else, there's a likelihood that it could be confused. And so they've had to go through a bunch of warnings for that. This is an interesting application where they've taken what we would typically look at as maybe a little ice cream container, and they have used it for feminine product. Now, not consumable. If you opened it, you wouldn't be confused if it was an edible product or not, I hope. But again, they've taken this formed paper cup and they have filled it with another product, put it in a totally different space. This is going to be something that's in your bathroom. Again, not confused for edible. This last one here is a sunscreen mousse, which kind of opens up the same issue that we have over here, which is a product that we would typically look at as edible being the product that is not edible being placed in a package that we would typically associate with something edible. And I don't know what ingredients are in here, if this is if this is super hazardous, but it definitely opens up this possibility for confusion. And so what we're looking at are products that are inedible being placed into packaging that we associate with edible products, and then products that are edible being placed in packaging that we associate with non-edible. Obviously, something that we think is edible being placed in a package that is not, way less risky. However, something that may appear edible being placed into packaging that we would associate with edible, we've got to be super careful as brands. And I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments below on what you think of these things, or if you've seen other products that are doing something like this disruptive. Again, it can be done. It can be really cool and really interesting. This is a really interesting product format, kind of like a shaving cream. Or it could be super sketchy. And would love to hear what you think about these 4 products, as well as any that you may have found out somewhere else. So in the meantime, don't drink your cleaner, don't eat your sunscreen, and these others I'll leave alone.